aboard! Hello and welcome to another episode of the Woodsman Whack-Off, the series that puts two woodsmen face to face to see which competitor can whack off their log the fastest. In this episode, we have a highly anticipated matchup between two excellent 60cc saws, both of which are considered the semi-pro version of a professional saw. First up, the rock-steady Echo CS590 Timberwolf. At 59.8 cc's with its long stroke and itty-bitty bore, the 590 prefers a bit lower revs and steady stroking to pull it through the wood. It is a solid saw that, regardless of what this video may or may not show, it is still going to be hands down the best bang for the buck saw on the market. Gotta love the Timberwolf. This saw is the semi-pro version of the Echo 620p. Next up, the Jonsered 2258 is also at 59.8 cc's, but it gets there with a more traditional bore and stroke setup, which in turn lends it to a bit higher RPMs. It also comes in at 12.3 pounds, which is an entire pound lighter than the Timberwolf. The 2258 is the semi-pro version of the 2260. These Jonsered model saws are essentially just red versions of the Husqvarna 555 and 560 XP models. Our woodsmen of the day are Binford. This guy single-handedly ensures that Swagger is alive and well. Old Spice has been trying to get him to promote their product for years, but Binford here is the essence of man. So, of course, he uses brute. And a rare treat for our audience, we have our sponsor himself, Bodie. Seeing how Bodie's mother-in-law purchased the Jonsered 2258 for him, he figures that he should be the one to run it. So there you go. Bodie's a pretty typical guy, nothing all that special, but he definitely likes to have some fun. But enough of that, let's get to whacking. All right, there they are. Bodie fires up the 2258. Boy, that's a nice looking saw. And Binford, as cool as he is, slicking the hair back with his sunglasses, revving up the 590, and we're getting ready for the gentle glide down the shaft. Both saws throwing chips in that 14 by 14 inch red oak cant. And it looks like that 2258, yep, it's got a little bit more revs, but it doesn't win by much. Here we go on the tug up. Both saws diving into that wood. I love to see it go right in and then pull up, pushing out the chips, spitting them out the other side. And again, we got the 2258 as the winner. It won by considerable on that one right there. Here we go with the vice grip. Ooh, the 2258 got hung up a little bit, but the Timberwolf had no issues whatsoever. That's the torque of the Timberwolf talking to you right there. And this is close. Whoa, dead nuts even, fellas. Dead nuts. That is something spectacular. Oh, and Binford even flips off Bodie. That guy's got a set of balls on him. Anyway, so there's your winner, guys. The Jonsered 2258. But honestly, not by much. Let's go to Bodie and see what he has to say about the race. Jonsered for the win. Jonsered for the win. However you want to say it, just don't say Jonsered. Or Jonsered. Or Johannesburg. A lot of people have problems pronouncing that. Anyways, I'm happy the Jonsered 2258 pulled out the win. In this video right here, what we actually have is that Timberwolf, whenever I was running that in, it probably had about 4 tanks of fuel in it. So it wasn't particularly broken in. But the Jonsered in that video is basically at the bottom of its first tank. So it's still not quite broken in for sure. But who cares? I don't care. It's fun to watch them compete against each other. I think everybody knew that the 2258 would outcut it. But, it might be a different story with a longer bar and some bigger wood. The 590 is definitely no slouch, and it shouldn't be considered that by anybody. So, but that was fun, enjoyable, got to run. I think they're the only ones. Basically, so you got the Husky 555, which is that Jonsered 2258, and you have the Echo 590 Timberwolf. I think those are the only two, I guess you would call them semi-pro 60cc saws. I don't think Steel makes one. I think so Steel would have their 362. I think that's what it is. And I think, that's definitely, they don't have a lower end version of the 362. I don't think. No, they might with like the 392 or 391. They might, but then that's a straight up clamshell saw, I believe. Whereas, and like Husqvarna has the 460 Rancher. I think both of those saws, yeah. Okay, I'm working through this in real time. I don't know everything, guys. And whenever you put stuff in the comments, it really helps me out. So thank you for that. But so, yeah, I guess that would be the way that it goes. Husqvarna and Echo both have professional 60cc saws. They are the 560 or the 562, now it is, XP, and the 620P from Echo. And they have semi-pro versions of those two saws in the 555 Husqvarna and 590 Echo Timberwolf. And of course, this Jonsered is nothing more than a 555 Husqvarna in red colors. But Steel, I think they don't do a semi-pro version. What they have is their pro version, and that's the 362. And then they have their farm and ranch version, which would be the 391 or 392, which would be in line with the Husqvarna 460 Rancher. So, which the Rancher, nobody's going to consider that a semi-pro saw. But anyways, there you go. Whatever. So we got all that lined out. I hope you liked the video. I hope you liked the little intro. I'm always trying to figure out something to say about these characters that I use. And the 2258, I know that most of you guys have been following it. That thing needs help big time. And that's why I really, really wanted to get a whack-off done with it early so that I could modify it. I do not want to run that thing in stock form anymore. And I'm not going to. I'm not even going to pull it one more time until I have a modified muffler on there because it just holds heat far too much. Larry, I think it's Larry. You had mentioned that saws are not designed to run in hot weather, and I get it. You're not wrong in that. But I know you know. This is just talking points. But I've ran a shitload of saws in hot weather, and I've never had one vapor lock the way that 2258 does. That Echo 590 won't do it. It won't vapor lock like that. And so you got to look at it and go, I got to fix this. I got to fix this, because I really like the saw. Whenever I was running it in cooler weather, I didn't have this issue. It fired right back up. It's no big deal. But it was like 95 degrees whenever I shot the video of the chain whack off, where I was cutting with the various different chains, that steel hexa chain and stuff. And that thing just kept vapor locking bad. And it's because heat soak getting back into there, into the engine and into the carburetor, and it is vaporizing the fuel as it sits in the lines and in the carburetor. And whenever it does that, it's like it's exactly like you just ran out of fuel, because your carburetor, the diaphragm, moved back and forth like that. That's the way it does. I know. Make fun of me. Go ahead. Make fun of me. I love the way you suck and blow, Bodie. But the diaphragm moves back and forth, and it's shaped like this. And it's getting that on one side of the carburetor's diaphragm. We basically have a tube that runs to the crankcase, and that tube is going every time the piston moves up and down. It's going yeah, that's literally what's happening. And if you can find a woman that does that, yeah. That's what's going on. I went deep on that one. Sorry, couldn't help myself. But that's literally what's happening as the piston moves up and down. Underneath, on the bottom side of the piston, it is creating suction and releasing it, basically. And so that makes your diaphragm go back and forth like this. Well, on the bottom side of that diaphragm, see, all that happened on the top. On the bottom side of that diaphragm, you have all the little ports and tunnels, the high and low jets, the tube going into your gas tank ultimately. And that movement up and down of the diaphragm is pushing air out and then creating a suction of the fuel coming up out of the tank. Right? Well, whenever you have nothing but air, everything is heat soaked and the gasoline is vaporizing immediately. You can't pump any liquid. You can't pump any liquid fuel through your carburetor. Eventually, you can, if you pull it enough, eventually you can, and then that fuel is vaporizing as soon as it's hitting your hot carburetor. So you're just fucked. You have to pull it so much to where you get enough fuel to cool off the line set and the cylinder and everything, because your fuel helps to cool your piston and cylinder, right? Which is why if you don't have enough fuel, right, if you're running too lean, then you don't have enough fuel to help cool your piston and cylinder. So, and then you fry your engine. That's why running lean fries your engine. It's not because you're not getting enough oil to lubricate your piston. Trust me, that the oils that are getting on your piston, especially if you're running, like I run 40 to 1, especially if you're running that, you've got more than enough oil to lubricate that engine. But whenever you run lean, it's not the lack of oil that causes failure. It's the lack of cooling properties that all of that fresh fuel coming into the cylinder is doing. Now, I know that your engine is air cooled. I know, but everything is designed with a purpose. The bulk of your cooling is absolutely done by the fan, right? The flywheel. Your flywheel turns, and that's why it's got those little fins on there. It is throwing air across the cylinder. And that is your primary cooling method. But then the extra fuel that gets put into the engine, or the fuel that gets put in the engine, also has a cooling effect as well. And with too little fuel, you're overheating. So with that Jonsered, what you're experiencing, you have two big reasons why it runs so effing hot. The number one reason is that it has this catalytic style muffler on it. For the past 20 years or so, the manufacturers, many of them, on many different versions of their saws, have been going the extra mile to ensure that all of the gases that make it into our cylinders are burnt before they are expelled to the atmosphere. And, you know, on one hand, that's a great thing. On the other hand, that leads to some really fucked up chainsaws. So, you know, the deal is that the mufflers get so hot that it is expected that any leftover emissions, once it leaves the cylinder, are going to be consumed and burnt inside the muffler before they get a chance to leave it. This is a catalytic type of process, and that's why the mufflers are made the way that they're made, to hold that heat. Well, this is extremely bad for the saw because that muffler is attached directly to, and it is encased inside, our chainsaw. And so whenever it holds all the heat, right, then it can't help but also pass that heat into the cylinder, which ultimately passes that heat into the crankcase, into the clutch, into the side covers. Reshoot, I forgot to mention the second problem of why this saw overheats the way that it does, and it is the X-Torque type cylinder, the Strato cylinder, whatever you want to call it. They are set up basically as a lean burn system. A lot of the cars did it back in the 70s, trying to save fuel and make them more fuel efficient. You know, Chrysler was really known for it. They actually had this thing called the lean burn system. All it was they were running the vehicle lean, and that causes problems. The fuel helps to cool your engine. In the cars, they can get away with it because you're liquid cooled, right? And you're also not using oil in the fuel to lubricate your piston. But the leaner you run your engine, the more heat it has naturally. And so I'll take this chance too to be like, yes, I know that the lubrication of the oil inside your gas is what does most of the cooling effect of your engine, because reducing the friction is reducing the heat, thus maximizing your cooling. So it's both. It's the actual fuel that is atomized and going into your cylinder that is providing a literal cooling effect, and it is the lubrication of the oil that is within that fuel that keeps the friction heat of your piston going up and down in the cylinder, right, to a minimum, right? So the cooling effect of the vaporized fuel is no different than you're on a hot day and you have a mist of water thrown in your face. It cools you, right? Because I don't want to get into heating and air stuff. Why not? Whenever a liquid turns into a gas, there is no way around it. There is only one thing that does that, and that is heat. If you're boiling water on the stove, the heat from the stove goes into the water and turns it into a gas. It's no longer a liquid. Whenever you change states, that either requires giving up heat or consuming heat, right? So whenever your fuel goes in, it's in a vaporized state, which is like a mist of liquid, right? And in order for that to turn into a gas, it literally absorbs heat. So you are literally getting a cooling effect from the vaporized fuel that is entering into your cylinder, as well as you're being lubricated by the oil, and that is reducing friction. So whenever you can't get rid of that heat through your exhaust, because you've got a catalytic style exhaust that's trying desperately to burn up every bit of emissions that it can possibly burn up, then it's not letting go of the heat. And you also, on top of that, have a lean burn system that, as far as I know, you can't get around. The auto-tune, you just can't get around it. It's a lean burn setup system. And so you got a lot of heat. We can't really control the auto-tune side of it. At least I don't know how to do it. But I can control the exhaust side of it. I'm going to open up that muffler. All right. Anyways. Into the carburetor. Now, if you have one of these saws and it is stock, what you can do to help this heat soak problem is don't shut off your saw. It needs that airflow going, right, to cool the saw. So if you are running the saw and then you have a tendency to just, boom, I'm done with it, cut it off. And you reach over here, you grab your earplugs or whatever, and then you pick up the saw and you go to start it, it won't start. Well, what has happened is that heat didn't get out, didn't get pushed out. And so it has soaked back into the saw itself. So don't shut it off. Leave it run, all right? Sit it off to the side, sit it on the ground, lock that brake, whatever. Leave it run, let it cool off before you shut it down, all right? Let it run for 30 seconds. And that'll help to get rid of some of the heat that you just generated by putting it in a big log and getting it good and hot. So, but you shouldn't have to do this, and there's a way to fix it. I am certain of it, even though I haven't done it yet. What I'm going to do is I'm going to build one of my hammerhead exhausts for it, and that alone should fix 100% of the problem, because it's just got to get the heat out. That's it. There's no problem with auto-tune. There's no problem with really the top cover even, although it is really close. They really got it sandwiched in there. They made a compact saw. But the big deal is getting the heat out through the exhaust. And so I will be building stuff. Hang in there. Subscribe to the channel, guys. Hit the like button too. Oh, this is something that I do it too. It is hard to remember. It is difficult to remember to hit that like button. But a lot of you guys are watching these videos to the end, which means you like my content. Hit the like button. Do me that flavor, man. Come on, do me that flavor. Hit the freaking like button. And because the more likes, it just works, okay? The channel is growing. And I just throw this out there for, sometimes I'll get 10 subscribers a day. All right? So that's a lot. And so this is for the new guys that have just found my channel. If you like what you're seeing, understand that my content will get better with the more money that my channel makes. All right, especially at this point, because basically every bit of money that I make, I just put it right back into the channel. But what was I going to say? Oh, so instead of waiting for new videos, go back and watch my old ones. Especially if you like the Poland stuff. Because I've got cool old Poland high top videos from way back, over a year and a half ago, I think. I started building the Benford Bad Boy Poland 3750 chainsaw a long time ago, and I got a lot of videos on that thing, and it's cool. I think, anyways, whatever. But the point is if you want the channel to grow, don't just wait for the next video to come out. Go back and watch some of the old stuff. Especially like the whack-offs. Wow, I've got a lot of those at this point. I don't know how many whack-offs I got, like 30 or 40. I got a lot of them. So, anyways, that's cool. Jonsered for the win, even though it's an overheating son of a bean. I need to fix that bad, and I will, and it'll be awesome, and you'll be like, wow, that's the coolest Jonsered chainsaw of all time. Maybe.